I'm looking forward to a fun weekend. We've got Reverend Roger Olsen. I'm going to read a little bit about him to you. Reverend Olsen is the pastor of Cedarwood Community Church and the Resource Development Coordinator for the Alabama Council on Compulsive Gambling. The Alabama Council is the official state affiliate and advocacy group to help problem gamblers in Alabama. Reverend Olsen is both a certified gambling counselor and a recovering gambling addict who has just celebrated 20 years of sobriety, which is cool. Reverend Olsen is able to tell you from personal experience of how destructive and baffling gambling addiction can be. Reverend Olsen spends the bulk of his time training others to work with this unique group of consumers, and he also does public awareness speaking on radio, television, civic groups, churches, and others helping professionals. So without further ado, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you. And hi, everyone. Glad to see you today here at Camp Sumatonga. Is that how you pronounce it?
Perfect.
All right. and love the fact that it is a Methodist camp. My very first job in ministry back in 1975, when I was fresh out of high school, I was the youth pastor of the El Segundo United Methodist Church from El Segundo, California. And so, forgive me, I have my coffee up here with me. I take a sip every once in a while. My father, God bless his soul, he was a member of the church that I pastored in California, and it just drove him nuts when I'd be standing in the pulpit and I'd have a cup of coffee. I mean, that was just his pet peeve. And one day he came up to me and he said, "Gosh darn it," he says, "that just drives me crazy that you have a cup of coffee up at the pulpit." And I said, "Well, it helps to soothe my throat." He said, "Well, why not just take a bologna sandwich up there with you?" So, anyway, glad to be here with all of you today to talk about problem gambling. First of all, I want to remind all of you that our organization is 100% neutral, and that's the gambler playing over the sound system right now. But what we do is we go around Alabama and we train people to become trained helping professionals like many of yourself to become certified gambling counselors. And I've got plenty of business cards, and I've got plenty of our brochures. And if you would like to know more about the certification program, you'd like to know what you have to do to become a certified gambling counselor in Alabama, just shoot me an email. I'll be glad to get in contact with you and talk to you. In fact, May 28th and 29th, we'll be doing a training session in Atmore, Alabama. And so that's the Thursday and Friday after the Memorial Day weekend. So, again, my topic today is problem gambling is a hidden disease, and problem gambling is a huge problem here in Alabama. Now, I just saw on the social media last night, again, the conversation has started up about a state lottery, again, about making a compact with the Porch Band of Creek Indians. I'm here to tell you that gambling is all around us here in Alabama. Now, when it comes to my own life, when I woke up one day in 1993 and I was bankrupt in every area of my life, this pretty much defines me. The emptiness of your heart is the essence of your addiction. I mean, I was just like a shallow vessel with no affect, no emotion. And I could take a lot of time right now to share my story with you. I just want you all to know that I started out taking my wife and kids to a facility in Laughlin, Nevada. Went there, wanted to have a lot of fun. I knew the rooms were cheap, the meals were cheap. I had never gambled before in my life. Went into the casino, played some slot machines, ended up winning more money than what I started the vacation on. And then, as a result of that, just jumped 3 years later, and I wake up one day and I've lost everything. My house, my car, my ministry. I was known around the town as the pastor in Southern California that threw his wife and kids under the bus. So if you want to hear more of my story, you can go here to this location. I just finished writing my book about my addiction. It's called The Dishes Under the Sink in the Garbage Bag. And when that comes out, I'll get information to Robert about it. You like that title, huh? Okay, you've got to wait and read the book to understand what that means, the dishes under the sink in the garbage bag. Well, you know, gambling's been around since the beginning of time, okay? And you know, here's a picture of the soldiers at the crucifixion, gambling for Christ's robe. And we know from prevalence studies that 80% of all Americans have gambled at least once in the last year. Now, gambling, and you say, well, how can that be? Well, let's look at this for a minute. Gambling activities include the lottery, casino games, slot machines, video poker, card games, bingo, raffles, sports betting, from office pools to illegal wagers with bookies. And now, if you have one of these devices and you have a high-speed internet connection, you can access over 2,500 internet gambling sites in the luxury of your home. So just think about it. Now you can lose your home without ever having to leave your home. You know, just keep it, that's right, just keeping it real. Our perceptions of gambling. If I said gambling to all of you, what is the first thing that would come to your mind? Casinos. The casinos. Yeah. The casinos, absolutely. Sports betting is big. Over 60 million Americans filled out brackets last year for basketball, and over $12 billion was waged legally on March Madness. This is going to grab you. There is more sports betting per capita in Alabama than in any other state. There is more sports betting per capita in Alabama than any other state. And again, because of these little devices, it's become such an easy thing to do. Use your smartphone, your iPad, your internet, your illegal bookies, your legal bookies that are in Vegas. And even kids as young as 12 and 13, they start placing those sports bets with the bookie on the school bus. So yeah, they take one of the kids and they say, okay, you're going to be the bookie. You're going to collect all the money, and then when somebody wins, you're going to pay the money out. So, sports betting, ladies and gentlemen, is big. And again, it usually involves kids in their high school years, and then the behavior just swells when they reach the college level. And one thing we're trying to do right now is we're trying to get in contact with the different counseling groups from the different universities and say to them, listen, there's a tsunami heading this way because sports betting is with the young people and the college age kids is just going out of control. Hey, can you believe it? This guy wins $181 million in the lottery on Wednesday and then finds the love of his life in just 2 days later. Talk about luck. Now I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, what does this slide say about our culture? What does it say about our culture?
Money. Values money.
Yeah, money. Money can buy you what?
Pretty women. With movies.
Exactly. You know, I remember when I was taking my psychology course in college, and the psychology professor would talk about the fact that, you know, when you watch couples, you see that most of them are pretty much matched up pretty well. But then when you see a couple like this, and you say, what's going on here? There's some underlying variable that you don't know of. All right. Well, just this last March, Governor Robert Bentley signed a proclamation that made just this last month Problem Gambling Awareness Month. And our theme this year was Problem Gambling Awareness Month, Have the Conversation. And so that's why I'm here today, is to have the conversation with all of you and hopefully impart something to you that you can take back to your clients or even your family. Now, gambling has become socially acceptable. And what I mean by that is, let's just take a look at this picture for a minute. And let's just assume that the child in the middle is my little beautiful granddaughter Isabel, who lives in Woodbury, Minnesota, okay? And let's say it's her 8th birthday. And Grandpa walks in with a 12-pack of Bud Light. And he sets it on the table and says, "Here you go, granddaughter. Now don't drink it all in one setting." Okay? Now what's going to happen to Grandpa? Yeah, they're going to arrest me. They're going to call aiding in the delinquency of a minor. Okay, so let's say Grandpa brings in a carton of Marlboro. Says, "Here you go, Isabel. Smoke them if you got them." Yeah, okay, same thing. But what if I give her a card, and in the card is a dozen scratch-off tickets from the Georgia lottery? What's everybody gonna say? "Oh, that's just so sweet. Look at there. Little Isabel has her very first scratch-off tickets." And they're all gonna say, "Oh, that's so nice. Oh, that is so sweet." And then what are they gonna tell her to do? Yeah, pull out a quarter and we'll scratch them off, honey. Okay, and little Isabel goes, "I want $100, Granddaddy." And what's that going to do to Isabel?
She's hooked from that day forward.
Thank you, thank you. It puts her at a much higher risk of developing a gambling problem, because the brain doesn't mature till the age of 24. So, for most people, and again, I don't know if I mentioned this or not, we are gambling neutral, by the way. Our organization is simply there to help others. But for most people, gambling is a social event. It's done for recreation. It is often done with family or friends, and it lasts a limited time. In other words, okay, we're going to go to the racetrack. We're only going to stay there for a couple hours, let's say. An acceptable amount of money that can be lost. Those are key words right there. That can be lost is decided upon ahead of time and is adhered to. And in this case, gambling doesn't control the person's behavior. And what I mean by that is very simple. Is the dog wagging the tail, or is the tail wagging the dog? So we decide ahead of time, okay, I've got $100 in my budget that I can play with for entertainment. I'm going to go to the casino. When that $100 is gone, I'm going to get up and walk away. They know when, like Kenny Rogers, like the song said, that which I didn't let play, but know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to just walk away. The disease model of alcohol. As alcohol is an addiction, it is considered a disease of the brain. The brain has been physically altered by extended exposure to alcohol, causing it to function differently and therefore creating addictive behavior. Well, folks, with problem gambling, it's the same thing. And people have a problem with the concept of problem gambling because of the fact that you don't ingest or swallow any particular chemical. But it all takes place up here, everybody, in the frontal lobe, in the reward system of the brain. And it just continues to work there. The high is a lie. We're chasing that feeling we got when our little 8-year-old granddaughter, or whoever it was, or myself, when I won that money in Laughlin, and I said, "Wow, how can these people even stay in business?" So from the National Council of Problem Gambling in Washington, D.C., which is the national advocacy group, they have these two definitions. Number one, problem gambling: the urge to gamble despite harmful, negative consequences or a desire to stop. And then there's pathological gambling, which is even worse. It occurs when a person gambling compulsively to such an extent that the wagering has a severe negative effect on his or her job, relationship, mental health, or other important aspects of life. The person may continue to gamble even after they have developed social, economic, interpersonal, or legal problems. Hello, can I get a witness?
Amen.
As a result of their gambling. Anybody here, can you tell me what this is up on the screen? Other than a rat. I mean, if you told me, well, it's a rat.
Pleasure reward experiment for cocaine addicted rats.
Absolutely, you're very close. You're very close. It's a little bit older than that. The key is the bar. The key is the bar, and the rat didn't get cocaine in this experiment. He just got a little morsel of food. This is a B.F. Skinner. Thank you. Who said that? All right. Case of motor oil, too. Dr. Robert Thornberry back there for getting that answer. Yeah, and Skinner found out that every time the rat pressed the bar, the food comes down. Press the bar again, the food comes down. Then he started to manipulate the rat. Let's do it every 2 times. Let's do it every 5 times. Let's do it every 100 times. And that rat doesn't know any better. He just keeps pressing the bar. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what I look like when I'm in my addiction to gambling. I'm just sitting there at my slot machine and I'm pressing the bar and I'm hoping that something's going to happen. And even when the money comes, I just play it all right back because I'm in my zone. I'm hypnotized. It's a pain medication for me. And so this is an image that I keep in front of me all the time and remind myself that I'm just one bet away from going back to being this rat. Let's talk about male problem gamblers. Now this applies to most but not all. They usually start at a very young age. These are the guys that are, 13, 14. They're playing poker behind the backstop. They're throwing quarters. Okay, they're making bets on who's going to win the Super Bowl game. Most of them are extremely competitive. We call them Action Jacksons, okay? Because it's winning at all costs. They love games where they can win at someone else's expense. You ever been in a poker game? Ever seen somebody win the pot? Oh man, they love to take their arms and pull that entire pot towards them and say to everybody, hey, everybody, look, I got this pot. I won this. So they engage themselves in games where they can be better than someone else. They love to flash money and brag about winnings. They have a very high ego, and they're very smart people. That doesn't mean they're smart at their gambling, but they're very smart individuals. Most female gamblers, on the other hand, we refer to them as the great escape artists. Most female gamblers, they start much later in life. When they get to a certain age, and all of a sudden the nest is empty, the husband has left them, the husband has passed away, they've had to relocate to a new community because of retirement, they've suffered the loss of a good friend. There's all sorts of different reasons. And all of a sudden, they go in one day and they start gambling. Now again, I'm only talking about that 2 to 3% of responsible gamblers that actually become problem gamblers. They see casinos especially as a safe place. And 50% of all problem gamblers are also involved in domestic violence. Now understand, I said 50% of all problem gamblers. Y'all remember the Ray Rice video? Y'all remember where it took place, where that elevator was located? It was in a casino. And the news media didn't even touch on that. And I thought, wow, what an opportunity to talk about the dangers of problem gambling. Could you see her, the fiance rather, standing there in the elevator and saying to him something like that? Well, there's another $100,000 you just threw away, and bam, I'll show you $100,000. Here, let me do this once or twice, knock you out. And so when we say 50% are involved in domestic violence, a lot of the females that we see come in, they're not the aggressor. They're the ones that have been receiving the domestic violence. And so they're attracted to games where nobody else gets hurt. It's just me and my slot machine here. I'm not hurting anybody. I'm just playing the game. They have limited means, so what they do with their winnings, they can help other people. Now, I was an escape gambler. I was not a competitive person. In fact, I was horrible at sports as a young person. And so when I started gambling, it was like I could walk into my own private Disneyland, set my problems on the shelf, and nobody was going to bother me. Nobody was going to get on to me. And so we look at action and escape gamblers. Action gamblers, they desire that excitement. They seek that stimulant like amphetamine or cocaine. In fact, they've done MRI studies of problem gamblers in action and cocaine addicts under the influence. And those MRIs, ladies and gentlemen, they look identical. It all affects the same reward system. And so those escape gamblers, it's like, wow, gotta go, gotta win, gotta be number one, no matter what. The escape gamblers, like myself and like most females, they seek relief from painful emotions or stress. They look at the gambling as a sedative or a tranquilizer. Let's look at the social costs here in Alabama. It is estimated that every pathological gambler costs Alabama $1,200 per year per person. You say, well, where does that money come up with? Well, when they've exhausted all of their resources on gambling, then they turn then to public assistance. They file bankruptcy. They start borrowing from other places. They are on the doors of the churches and the doors of the other organizations trying to get relief. Now, if they're just a problem gambler, it's not usually the same amount of money. It's more about $715 per problem gambler per year. Again, problem gamblers just abuse the gambling. Pathological gamblers has full-blown gambling addiction. And we know also from research that for every dollar in problem gambling services that we offer, we save $2 in those social costs. Because once you get somebody into recovery, then they start being a productive part of society again. They're able to work a job. They're able to start paying off some of these debts. When the DSM-5 came out, they labeled pathological gambling from an impulse control disorder to an addiction. In fact, the DSM-5 labels it as disordered gambling and addiction. And the number one question that I get all the time is, why can't they just stop? You know, why can't they just stop? And we tell them, don't go and gamble anymore. Why can't you just stop doing it? Folks, it's because it's an addiction.
Yeah, and Roger, I'm glad you mentioned that because some people may not know that the DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual.
Exactly.
For mental disorders.
The Diagnostic Statistic Manual. It is the Bible to clinicians. Okay? And we're going to look at that right now. First of all, we're going to look at what the DSM-5 says about the diagnostic criteria. It says persistent and recurrent problematic gambling behavior leading to clinically significant impairment or distress as indicated by the individual exhibiting 4 or more of the following in a 12-month period. So again, they can't stop. They keep doing it no matter what the negative consequences. Money is the drug of choice to a problem gambler. In the problem gambler's mind, okay, I lost that $5 grand, but just one more bet, just one more bet, just one more bet. There's no saturation point with a problem gambler. If I brought 3 people in here right now, an alcoholic, a cocaine addict, and a gambling addict, and I gave them all $10,000, and I said, okay, now for the next 1 hour, you can go to have your addiction, and I want you to come back at the end of an hour and give me whatever you have left. So the alcoholic comes back, and all he spent was a couple $100, and then he passed out. Okay, he drank as much as he could. He's out. Okay, the cocaine addict, you know, he was able to snort about $300 worth, but after that, you know, hour's up, sorry, you know. The gambling addict's going to come in and he's going to say, I lost it all. I lost every penny of it. But if you give me another $10,000, I promise I'll bring you back $25,000. And that's the way they think. That next bet. I'm reminded of the story of the pastor that was walking through Skid Row. And he saw a homeless man, and he was just deeply moved with emotion. And so Robert, he took out a $20 bill, and he walked up to the homeless man, and he whispered in his ear, "Never despair." Well, by coincidence, a week later, the pastor was walking through that same part of town. And out of nowhere, he hears this voice yelling and saying, "Preacher! Preacher!" And he's waving his arms, and the preacher stops, and he runs up, and he sticks $60 in his hand. And he says, "Sir, I don't understand." He says, "No, preacher, you were right. Never Despair came in first place on the 4th race, and the odds were 6-1. Here we go. 4 more of the following 9. First of all, problem gambling has tolerance like any other addiction. The need to gamble with increasing amounts of money in order to achieve the desired excitement. I love it when people say, "Oh, all I do is go to the casino and play the penny slots." And on our YouTube page, there's a thing on there from 60 Minutes which will tell you all about why penny slots are so addictive. Because it's a false sense of security. Well, it's just a penny slot, you know. Well, what's wrong? I just go across the border and I just buy, you know, one lottery ticket. They go through withdrawal. They are restless or irritable when attempting to cut down or stop gambling. Loss of control. They have tried repeatedly to stop, cut back, but they just can't do it. Preoccupation. They don't just think about gambling while they're gambling. They have persistent thoughts about past gambling experiences and what they're going to do. I used to sit in my office and instead of working on my sermon, I'd be sitting there thinking, okay, I get paid on Friday. When I get paid, I'm going to get in my car. I'm going to drive to the casino. I'm going to go to this machine first. And I'm going to win $100 on that machine. Then I'm going to go over to the $5 machines. And I would just obsess over this. And also obsess over ways, how was I going to get money? Escape. Often gambles when feeling distressed. In other words, helpless, guilty, anxious, or depressed. Chasing. After losing money gambling, they often return another way to get even. They're chasing their losses. And in the addictive delusion of the problem gambler, they don't think of the money that they've lost as lost. They think of it as, well, the casino's just holding it. Well, I left it at the poker table. Well, it's over at the racetrack or the dog track. And I just need to go back on another day and win it all back. And that's why in Gamblers Anonymous we tell people it's gone. It's gone. Okay, my house, my car, all the money that I gambled away in California, it's all gone. I'll never see it again. Okay, what I have to do now is just go forward. Lying. Gosh, can you believe that some clients actually lie to their therapist? I've never heard of such a thing. But they lie to conceal the extent of involvement with gambling. And I'm going to get back to that here in just a moment. They have risked a significant relationship. They've jeopardized or lost a relationship, job, education, or career opportunity because of their gambling. Now, I told my 13-year-old son, I used to go to every single one of his baseball games. And I told him, son, one day you're going to hit that home run ball. I just know it. Well, guess what? One game, I needed to be over in Las Vegas. And he called me on the phone later that night. He didn't know where I'd been. He said, Dad, I just wanted to let you know, tonight was the night that I hit that home run ball, and I couldn't be there to see it. So in other words, I tell my gambling clients all the time, it wasn't just money you're putting on the table. It wasn't just money you were putting on that bet. It wasn't just money you were putting into that machine. You were putting your family, your livelihood, your integrity, everything. And you lose those significant relationships because of it. Bailouts. Folks, when it comes to problem gamblers, bailouts are the worst thing. And they rely on others to provide money to relieve a desperate financial situation which is caused by their gambling. This is why if you have a pathological gambler, and let's say they hit the big one, they get a big number, okay? That will actually take them out of the gambling for a while. Because now they'll say, oh, I've got all this money now. So I can pay this bill, and I can pay this person back, and I can go to the pawn shop, and I can go to the title loan company and get the title back, and I can pay off the payday loans, and on and on and on. And then a few weeks go by. And maybe another week go by. And they say, you know, I put that extra $10,000 in the bank, but I think I can live with just $5,000. Let me go pull that $5,000 out and go back and gamble. Okay? And the same thing is true with bailouts. All right? You know, when a family member calls me and says, Joe says he needs $100 for the power bill, I'm going to tell him, look, you go pay the power bill if that's the case. You don't give them $100. The worst thing you can do is just bail out a problem gambler and not get them into recovery. So, again, severity, those last 9 items that I just shared with you, they've got a mild case if they get 4 to 5. They got a moderate case if they get 6 to 7. A severe case if they got 8 to 9. So when you're trying to do an assessment with one of your clients, or with one of your fellow lawyers, or with somebody in your family, you have the DSM-5, which we just went over, okay? We also have on the Gamblers Anonymous website, and if you want the website, my email address is on my card, okay? Just let me know, I'll get it to you. But basically, it's gamblersanonymous.org. And they have a list of 20 questions, and if you answer 7 of the 20 questions, then chances are you have a gambling problem. But right now, I want to give every person here the simplest assessment tool that I could give that 99.9% of the time is going to be accurate. And it's called the bet-lie question. The bet-lie question. And the reason that the bet-lie question is so important is because the one thing that I hear from people is, you know, I bring people in and I assess that they have an alcohol problem. I assess that they have a drug addiction problem. But I wouldn't have thought anything about their gambling. And then if the subject does come up, these people that are dual addicted, they're going to tell you, oh, just treat me for the alcohol. I don't need any treatment for the gambling. It's much too much fun, you know. Okay, but the way that the dual addiction works, if you don't treat them both, higher potential for relapse, especially if they're a casino gambler. Because what do they give in the casino that's free? Booze. Yeah. Another one, Mr. Olsen. There you go. Chug it down there. You know that you'll be enjoying that. You're gambling a lot more. So if you're a problem gambler and an alcoholic, you don't need to be going to the casino. Because the gambling can cause a relapse in the alcohol, and the alcohol can cause a relapse in the gambling. So for all of you that are doing any kind of assessments with your fellow lawyers or your fellow clients, I would encourage you to write a note on your assessment pad and ask every single client, do you gamble? Or I'll say, do you like to gamble? And you're going to get one of two responses. You're going to get, oh no way. I work much too hard for my money. You know, I might have an alcohol problem, but I don't gamble. Went there once, lost 50 bucks. Okay. Or you're going to hit, man, do I ever love to gamble. I go there all the time. You can't keep me away from the place. I love it. Man, the other night I won $10,000. Now here is the assessment tool. And it's called the bet-lie question. The first question is, have you ever bet money that you could not afford to lose? Do you remember what we said about responsible gambling? We said that an amount of money is decided on ahead of time that can be lost. Because 99.9% of the gambling activity is about losing, okay? It's about losing. When you walk into the place of gambling, if you're going to walk into the dog track, if you can't take that $100, rip it up and stick it in the trash can and say, if I never made a bet today, that $100, it's not going to hurt me to lose it. Then you have no business being there at the dog track or gambling. And God help those people who already have such little means to live on, and they get their monthly support, and then they think, gosh, if I could just double this. And again, 99.9% of the time, you're going to lose money, and it's that 1% that wins, and then that's where the fun and the entertainment is. Well, I tell you something, it's no fun if you're betting money that you can't afford to lose to begin with. Okay? So that's the first question. The second question, have you ever had to lie to anybody to cover up your gambling activity? Oh, you know, if I let my wife know that I'm over gambling, nobody, because it's a hidden disease, nobody knew that I was going to Vegas once a month and gambling my entire paycheck. I could drop my wife off at work, go to Ontario Airport, hop on a Southwest Airlines jet for $59 round trip, fly to Vegas, be in the Tropicana Hotel and Casino, gamble it all away, get back on the plane, and the only time I left there with money in my pocket was if I looked at the clock and I knew I'm going to miss my flight if I don't leave right now. Therefore, I must leave. Because when I pick up my wife and she'd say, Roger, how was your day at work? Oh, honey, you know, it was just another day at the office. What can I say? And then jump that to 1993, and then one day there's a knock at the door. Yeah, Mr. and Mrs. Olsen, your house has been sold at auction. You've got 4 days to vacate and find some place to live. And because the insanity of the illness, I just, right up to even the very end, I just thought, boy, I just need to get one bet. I just need to get lucky that one time. And it just wasn't going to happen. Here's some statistics for you. 30% of all alcoholics are problem gamblers. So if I brought 100 alcoholics in here, 30 of them have a gambling problem. Okay? 50% of all problem gamblers are alcoholics. So if I bring 100 problem gamblers in here, half of them have got an alcohol problem. Robert, how am I doing time-wise?
You got 15 more minutes.
Oh, great. Good. Glad to know. So again, when we talk about dual addictions, when we talk about comorbidity, which I didn't put in the slides today, but, you know, if they suffer from severe depression, if they suffer from PTSD, if they suffer from OCD, I've got ADHD, and if it wasn't for this stool that I'm sitting on, I'd be bouncing all over this room right now. And that's the way I gambled on slot machines. I didn't sit there and play one machine. I bounced around. I could play 50 machines by the time I was out the door. But you see, I've learned about myself that for my ADHD, my gambling was also like getting a Scooby snack. You all seen the cartoon Scooby-Doo? And they're always giving Scooby a Scooby snack? Well, for people that suffer from ADHD, gambling becomes a way for them to become desensitized through the brain. And so again, another group that you might want to pay attention to is people that habitually play video games. That group is at high risk for developing a gambling problem. The electronic gaming machines, the video poker, the slot machines, the electronic bingo, those machines don't make that noise. They don't have that sound. They don't use the flashy colors just because somebody thought, gee, wouldn't that be nice to have it do this and that? They are wired to desensitize the brain. And they are known in the industry as the crack cocaine of gambling. Think about somebody that's used to sitting at a poker table. How long does it take an average hand of poker to play? Just one hand. What would you say? 10 minutes, 20 minutes, a half hour? I know y'all gonna say, well, it probably depends on who you're playing with, okay? You have somebody like me that doesn't even understand poker, okay? All right, so now think of somebody playing an electronic gaming machine where he presses a button, 5 cards come up. He picks the ones he wants to save. He presses a button to get rid of the ones he doesn't want. The hand's over. Did he win or lose? Okay, and he does that repeatedly. We're back to the rat pressing the bar. See? So that is highly, highly addictive. We have a gentleman by the name of Jim Douglas. You can Google his name. He was an attorney in Auburn. He was taking the attorney money and he was flying out to Las Vegas and he was playing in high-stakes poker games. And it finally caught up with him. I could stand in the pulpit myself and say, you can be sure your sin will seek you out. But I always said, oh, but nobody's going to find out about my gambling. No way. So it affects anybody, anytime, anywhere. We, the Alabama Council on Compulsive Gambling, we recently partnered with the United Way's 211 program. You know, if you need information, you dial 411. If you got to have your phone repaired, you call 611. If you need to know where the power cables are buried, you call 811. If you have an emergency, you dial 911. If you need social services, you call 211. They can hook people up with all sorts of programs that you won't find in the yellow pages of your phone book. And now, if you call 211 and you say, I have a gambling problem, I need help. All of the counselors, and so far we have trained over 40 counselors in the last 3 years, all over the state of Alabama. We have 40 therapists, all the support groups, the Gamblers Anonymous meetings, the Celebrate Recovery meetings, they are all listed with the 211 network. So one of the best, one of the best things that you can do to a fellow client, if they have a gambling problem, is say, well, it needs to start with 211. You say, well, Mr. Rogers, since you're here in the neighborhood, tell us other ways that we can help our fellow lawyers or our fellow clients. Well, number one, the first thing you want to do if the person has a gambling problem is encourage them to turn over the money to someone responsible and not addicted to gambling. Yeah. You'd be surprised how many couples will say, well, I can't give it to my wife because she's just as addicted as I am. Okay? And I'm going to tell you, oh, they don't want to turn over that money. No way, no how. That's my money. I work for that money. And you tell them, look, we're not talking about something etched in stone here for the rest of time. But so-and-so, you need help. And we've got to get you into recovery. And so the first thing you need to do is you look at the family members. And again, problem gambling is a family disease. Everybody in the family gets sick. Number two, look at self-exclusion. Many internet sites now at least are responsible enough that they will allow the person to self-exclude. That means they tell the internet site, don't take my credit card anymore from me. I got a gambling problem. The Indian casinos, if you go in there and you say, I need to ban myself from this place, I have a gambling problem. They'll have you fill out the paperwork and they'll tell you. Now, if you come back in here and we catch you, you will be arrested for trespassing. And number two, if you get past the security guards and you win a jackpot, you will not receive it.
Wow.
Self-exclusion. And you can do it for a year, 5 years. Oh, I had a client come in just this last week. When I told her about self-exclusion, you thought I had told her that the world was going to come to an end in 5 minutes. And I said, okay, look, I see that bothers you. I said, the minimum you can do is 1 year. Would you at least do it for a year so you could at least get into recovery? I got her to go for a year. And she opened up her wallet and she handed me all her winner's cards. By the way, in the casinos, it says down at the bottom of the winner's card, if you have a gambling problem, call the national hotline number, which is 1-800-522-4700. It's on the brochure that I'm leaving with you today. Well, those 800 calls are also routed to the 211 call center. And the 211 call center representatives have all been trained to handle those phone calls. And I know that because I've trained them. And then on top of that, do you know that with problem gamblers, there is also a 2 to 3% higher rate of suicide? More than any other addiction. Because when they look at all the financial damage they've done, they look at suicide as that last winning moment. Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going out there under the tree. I'm going to take my 45. I'm going to pop it, and then all the problems will go away. And I'll be a winner. I'll be a winner because now no one will have to come and look for me. Well, 211 knows what signs to look for, and also the 211 in Huntsville also maintains the suicide hotline here in Alabama. So we're very confident with the 211 network. You ask the client, can you please come clean about all the debts? You all are lawyers. You know what I'm talking about. You want the person to tell you the truth and come clean about everything. Because if they hold back that one little debt, it can cause them to relapse because they're going to say, I couldn't say anything to my wife about the title loan, so I got to keep going back to the casino and just trying to win the money just to pay the title loan off. Sometimes we have to educate our clients about financial literacy. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but sometimes they just don't understand. They'd have more money tomorrow if they were just sticking $50 in a savings account every week and not taking that $50 every week and gambling it. And again, get the client into treatment. Call 211. And then encourage the entire family to get involved with the treatment. And sometimes, God bless them, the family members are the biggest enablers. The family members can be the biggest hindrances to the client's recovery. What? 12-step meetings? Friday night? That's our bowling night. Well, what do you mean he can't go back to the casino? I want to go back to the casino. I like to get my $100 of free play every month. I'm just keeping it real here. So you need to encourage the entire family to come on board with the recovery. Ladies and gentlemen, we handle the entire state of Alabama. This is our mailing address, our phone number, our website address, which our website needs a total revamping right now. And here's my contact information, my cell, church number, my email address. And again, if you go to YouTube, just type in the search box ALCCG 2012. We have an entire page where many of the videos, including this video here, will be posted for folks to see. Do I have time for questions?
Yeah, I think we've got a few minutes.
All right. Not everybody at once. Someone have a question for me? Other than who's buried in Grant's tomb?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm interested in the connection between the pathological gambling and alcohol. And I don't have any experience, so now I see.
Sure.
No experience with gambling, but it seems like if they're really after the gambling high, then alcohol just prevents them from being gambling. I think the real serious gambling is not being drunk and being a serious gambler. So, do you have any research on that?
I really don't. In fact, there's not a whole lot of research that's been done on pathological gamblers. But what will happen is the alcoholic will go into the casino with the best of intentions of not drinking, and then they'll start being served some alcohol, and then their inhibitions will go down, and then before they get to that point where they're inebriated, because believe me, there's people all over that floor. They don't want anybody inebriated trying to disrupt the other players, okay? But you know, there's that addictive delusion kicks into high gear then with the use of the alcohol, or sometimes having the alcohol outside of the casino may get them thinking, you know, I feel really good about myself tonight, so I think I could go back over there to the dog track and win me a couple hundred. And it's just a never-ending thing. Yes.
And I think it's interesting too that the science has known for a good while now that those exact same neural pathways and neurotransmitters that are involved in all the addictive disorders, those exact same ones are also involved in gambling addictions. So to me, it's not surprising at all that many gamblers are alcoholic addicts and vice versa.
Yeah.
It's the same disease, it's just a different product.
That's
big
right.
and high. But the dopamine neurotransmitters, the high, the whole symptomology of it, after the high is over, then there's the remorse the next day, and all the patterns are the same.
Can't believe I did that.
Mhm.
I don't need to go back and do that again.
Yeah.
2 days later, well, I think I can handle it. I think I just bet on the wrong dog with the wrong horse.
Yes.
You know.
I think it's just really important because so many people really don't buy that gambling can be an addiction, true addiction.
They don't.
So.
They don't, but it sure can. I know that firsthand.